Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We'll get started. Good evening. My name is Ivan Salinas, and I'm the programs coordinator at Beyond Baroque. Welcome to this virtual reading celebrating Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Month. Just to share a few words about our organization, we're a nonprofit literary arts organization founded in 1968 by George Dury Smith. A project that began as an experimental literary magazine and evolved into the interdisciplinary art space we know today. Since the late 70s, the organization has taken residence in the original Venice City Hall in California. We are a place dedicated to the possibilities of language, providing a platform for readings, writing workshops, gallery exhibitions year-round. For today's event, we are providing ASL interpretation. With us are Mona Jean Setter and Moxie Marsa Coles Felix. Thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful event and all your work to make this reading more accessible. I'd like to acknowledge your presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous peoples through colonialism and genocidal practices. And as an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting the community's stories, and we recognize they are present with us. Beyond Baroque has been a space for community since its founding. And every weekend we're hosting a wide variety of programs that support the local and national literary scene. If you're local to LA, in Los Angeles, you can visit our space and check our calendar in advance to see any of the upcoming programs we're hosting. We'll be dropping links to the chat for you. Ever since we reopened the space in March of 22, we've archived most of our recorded programs on our YouTube channel, which can be accessed at any time. We also do our best to live stream and archive all of our current programming in person. You can also attend our current virtual weekly workshops in fiction, happening every Monday night, and in poetry, which takes place every Wednesday. You can find more information about the in-person workshops we'll be hosting in the next couple of months through our website. I'd like to thank our directors, Quentin Ring and Jimmy Vega, and staff working on this program, Catherine King, Megan Leahy, and Genesis Perez. And our special gratitude to Poets and Writers for funding this program through their mini grant funding. Thank you so much for making it all possible. For today's evening of readings, we are celebrating Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Month. And it was thanks to our great co-organizer and featured poet, Angela Peñarredondo. Thank you so much for gathering all the wonderful poets who we'll hear from. And before we begin with the poetry, I'd like to welcome Angela, who can say a few words about the group of poets who will be sharing their work.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. So this group reading is very much inspired and informed by the works and visions of these authors reading with me today. I'm very much compelled with their poetics, their aesthetics, their style of storytelling that speaks truth to power. And when I say power, I'm not just thinking about extreme power imbalances that are felt systemically or geopolitically, but also how power and dominance plays out in other locations of intimacy, such as the familial and relational and spiritual spaces. I feel the writing here tonight is deeply curious on how this process materializes and metabolizes in one's imaginary, that deep entangled place where emotions, dreams, rituals, meditations, converge with history and myth. I feel these writers hear, explore, interrogate, and dance in these intersecting rivers. They activate what's found in what was initially meant to be buried, simultaneously not also dismissing the vital subjectivities when writing about or in proximity to race, gender, class, sexuality, and ability. Here we unapologetically meditate while still being tenderly exposed to a world in tidal rupture. These writers find language and lineage inside spaces that converge myth-making and healing as anti-colonial resistance and resilience. In the stories within the poem, the lyrical voice, the experimental voice, the performative voice is a body in ceremony, a body morphing, shape-shifting, talking to the gods or spirit, a body calling out violence because it is a movement towards preservation. It is a body grieving because it is a way to both fight back and protect. Thank you, Beyond Baroque, and the ASL interpreters, and thank you all of you for being here.
Thank you so much, Angela. A reminder to the audience, please feel free to use the chat. We encourage you to say hi and tell us where you're joining us from. Feel free to write a few lines of verses you like from any of our poets, any words of encouragement you'd like to share, and please support our authors. We'll be dropping a link to bookshop.org website where you can purchase a copy of the author's books. If you use this link directly, you're also supporting Beyond Baroque Bookstore, which I am currently located in. So please visit us in person as well. Without any further delay, we can get started with poetry. So our first poet of the evening is Kay Wollendai Barrett. Kay is a poet, essayist, cultural strategist, and A+ snapper. They are the winner of the 2022 Foundation for Contemporary Arts, C. Twombly Award for Poetry, a 2022 recipient of a Tin House Next Book Residency, and a recipient of a 2020 James Baldwin Fellowship Award at MacDowell. Their second book, More Than Organs, received a 2021 Stonewall Honor Book Award and is a 2021 Lambda Literary Award finalist. Their contributions are found in the New York Times, Academy of American Poets, Poetry Magazine, and elsewhere. Currently, they serve as a co-curator at the Asian American Writers' Workshop. Please welcome Kay.
Hey, everybody. How are you all doing? I just want to thank Angela and give my biggest love and congratulations to you, Angela, and to this marvelous book. And I'm so blessed to be here. As an access note, I am a brown, round, queer person with a blue hat, and I wear a white collared shirt with black floral outlines. First poem. The end of the world means trans boys sprout from sequin. I'm a former beauty pageant queen, so, down with monarchy, but I was Little Miss Luzon. That's who I was. And here's a poem about it. The last time he wore a dress, he felt sequins were snake. Blood of an artery rippled, or was it coward? And you could hear the storm of him bedazzled in sparkles. Did I mention he was 15 and his mom organized the beauty pageant, summoned doctors and engineers from her barangay. Her blue collar made worthy among them if she just worked harder. He felt their eyes sliver to his confused body, Boy bested by lipstick, boy with flowers, boy with crested wings for wavy hair. And to think, what is a petticoat but a gate, a cloud of taffeta, a new orbit? Imagine him then, a dare to be cumulus. Here, for one night, he'll be reckless in the sky, and there no one is smug or ashamed, and they'll think him a queen, but under the dress, he opts for starshine. Yes, royal, instead a prince whose laugh juggernauts rolls over in thunderclap. The mist of him barrels over the hotel ballroom draped in white tablecloth. And according to the organization's treasurer, whose lipstick glimpsed of blackberries, she saw parables of light, gold boundless beams silked over stage at the sight of his smirk. A parade of high-heeled drag queens emerged, garlands of hot pink, of seafoam blue flounced soliloquies and lip sync to 90s R&B classics next. Boys with eyeshadow adorned leather, which gilded their riverbed chests. Bantam boys heaved pages of poems over the chandeliers, stanzas like confetti. How Tito's toupees transmute to a dervish of kites, glitter enveloped. At this point, the hotel manager has called the police. As a turn of events, the security swiftly intercepted, danced to the music of high heels. WGN News at 9 ushers an anchor who outs herself as trans to say her name like full sugar bite in jubilation. The freedom to name herself to thousands gets rejoiced in the rain. She puts on her favorite wig, no fear. Parloristas crest that main stage in applause. To find flesh, to revel in bashful blush, to know that splendor doesn't have to be tsunami. Instead, dozens of titas sob tears of relief, kicking off their own pumps, giving the queens a blessed offering. And the dance floor, well, that's just an altar. To have been there is to celebrate the spectacle of breath, the act of knowing the carceral is not everything. In fact, beloveds, we can take it away. Be brazen bouquet. Be new. Thank you. So my next poem is Artichoke. I love food, so all of these poems you're hearing are all brand new work. It's not in a book yet, so it's in a manuscript. Artichoke for Edna Ramos. Lessons you offer, how one can be prickly tender, how to work, how to scrape, how to green, and yet on the inside, how to purple, how to majestic. Someone thought to open up the sharpest thing, rename it meal, flesh center barricaded by miscellaneous knives, whole life likely a dare. I too know to breathe shield, what it is to be jagged, to be your own bouquet, confused for ornament, wrap limbs into knotted, lonely, disowned coniferous, and maybe to be steamed, to unhinged joints, to want to be believed, to be beloved, to be known for your buttery, to be raked of it, even though mind clustered, yes. To live honestly and be considered this'll beget a body noble, something more than circumstance than exterior, fed up with being mistaken for a weed, ache to splay like firework, seen as extra, seen as too much work, likely considered at Brooklyn dinner parties to be an acquired taste and too fancy, or wait, how do you even eat that? Shimmer silk from center, want nothing more than to be pride, than for someone to just dig in, to be brave or curious, to quest, to use all hands, to spread limbs and not mind the bold foliage. Thin blade skin draws blood when held too tightly. Wish for somebody to just say, this looks impossible, but what if? What if this could be my most favorite thing? Bet. Somewhere inside, there's Blossom. Thank you so much. My last poem, and so in the script, just want to tell the ASL folks, my last poem will be Sick for Sick. There's this conversation about love that happens when you're seeking it romantically or sexually or whatever, if you're a queer person, and it's, there's trans for trans, right? Or person of color for person of color. And as a sick person in the pandemic, I'm always searching for kinship with other sick and disabled people. So this is my last poem. Thank you, Beyond Baroque. Thank you, my other wonderful readers who I have crushes on. So I'm so excited to listen to you all. And again, 1,000,000 stars and hearts to Angela for all that they do. Sick for Sick. Their body patched, swollen skin, hair flecks gone rogue, mismatched knees, ache knits, quilt throughout, curvature. A soft thing. And they said, if we hum close enough that our chests touch, shared breath comes from belly up, that is not platonic. Now, breathe same air. Nostril kinetic by way of brow cleft, pirouette of migraine, syllables twirl temples. Strain is something to lull here together. When nerves are ablaze, I'm told to be blankets. Lay my torso on theirs, abdomen to abdomen, core to core. Is this what a field does to a hill? Spill it with poppies. I wait on their skill. How they will sigh. The human body is heating pad, limbs bonfire, flips sheets. You can't reverse sick. And today we don't want to. Chests pulse soft as lake. Come spring, come spring, we never do this again. There's only the memory of it. How their lungs cathedral, how I prayed there on the ledge of inhale, sternum sacred, coughed him, spasm luminescence, syllables stretched, muscled sacrament more than splay. Us, petals in overlap, us, an ampersand on fire. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Kay. Give it up for Kay Ulandai Barrett, starting the reading with fire. All right. Our next poet, No'u Revilla, is an Oiwi poet and educator. Her debut book, As the Brindled, won the 2021 National Poetry Series. She also won the 2021 Omnidon Broadside Poetry Prize. Her writing has been featured in Poetry, Lit Hub, Annalee Beloit, and the Library of Congress. And she has performed throughout Hawaii, Toronto, Papua New Guinea, and the United Nations. She is an assistant professor at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, where she teaches creative writing with an emphasis on Oiwi literature, spoken word, and decolonial poetics. Please welcome No'u Revilla.
Aloha, ke aloha nui, ya kako. Okay. I am pooling spill it with poppies. I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. Bless your spilling. Thank you so much. And my deep gratitude and awe and respect to Angela. And you know, Angela, you mentioned earlier in your introduction the body in ceremony. And I feel like every time I read your work or I listen to you manifest your work, that's the effect that you have on my body, making me attentive to the way I breathe, to why I breathe fast or slow at this line or at this line break. And I just really uplift you. And I'm so humbled to be here with you, Angela, and all these incredible, incredible creatives. Mahalo for everyone who make this possible and for joining us tonight. Okay, I'm gonna share some queer love stories from Hawaii tonight. Mahalo everyone for being here. Mercy. This morning, I kissed a woman with a brick in her clay hands. I am building a house, she said, brick in her hands, tongues in her mouth, door ajar. We kissed and I went searching for other bricks she brought this way, one by one in her clay hands. She smelled like a house. The one I saw built from scratch near the water tower in Wai'ehu. Did you find more bricks? Now I was young, a 10-gallon bucket clanging with nails. Who was I to say what was mine and not mine? Did you find the water tower? Over and over I searched, bricks in hand, ready to sleep in the roof of her mouth, ready to build a home and call her mine. Did you find the door you tore open and ran from? Mine. The door you buried in bricks, that's not mine. One by one, Wai'ehu torn, one by one, Wai'ehu built again. Memory made from scratch. Did you find me there? This morning, I kissed each brick of this woman, and her name was Mercy. To continue my aloha for this woman, I give you X is a verb, because isn't it just a blessing when we're able to build family with our exes and practice abundance that way? X is a verb. When the torch is more a crackling pit of skulls and carrying it means Waikiki at 2 a.m. I love the pitiful karaoke, the pink wash and standing room only, because we suffer together. Who said ex-lovers shouldn't hook each other by the bra and talk shit? Like which Venus would be next to make house and tangle with Gemini law? Who with the horns, forward thinking, bright with faith, will grope in darkness and make me a shape at last, anything but an edge to leap from, a cliff incarnate. We spent months sharing ghosts, our marrow mistaken for medicine. But about this morning, you still haunt me. And I can still smell our burning skin. I love that girl. So dedications to all the people who have shaped our love to be the muscle and the mercy it is today, right? Thirst traps. With the edge of a spoon, I scrape fish scales from my father's omilu and drop them into a Heineken bottle, nearly empty. My thumb is squeezed over the tiny glass mouth, and I know if I choose to shake it, I must shake vigorously. The clump of scales kneading the beer in the bottle thinning the clump out as if there never had been a body flopping on dry land before. I even knew which cousin would drink it if I dare her. Because when we were young, girls could still keep their scales, could swim without drowning, hear tailgates grunt open and still glisten our bodies safely. But skins shed, and skins later we would emerge for any clapping fool, lunge even for mosquitoes. And skins lately, we've learned to drink our own storms, shaking for open water and calling that redemption, calling that a family poem. And for my last humble offering to you, Angela, and to this incredible chorus of voices here today, I offer Myth Bitch. Before we stopped speaking, my mother told me of an all-woman island. My side of the family, she said, her mouth twisting like a sick branch. And the women are witches. I have since dreamed of women with heads of barbed wire, torso in the bedroom, breasts in the sink, legs divided between Oahu and Maui. Is witch the right word? When I sleep with a new woman, my mother whispers, fetus, into her fingers and sews my mouth shut. The fetus of a witch becomes a bitch. No daughter of hers will sleep like that. And for the self-segmenting woman armed with needle and thread, rhyme is a mnemonic device. Repetition is rope. I will always look like my mother. Repeat, say nothing, daughter. Repeat, sleep alone, daughter. Daughter is the word for stitch her close. When my blood touches her blood, it means my mother is spitting needles. When I dream of women and wire, it means I fuck like a woman at war with her body. Where is my rope? I am witch, I am island, or am I a love story poorly translated? Fetus eating with a face to memorize, mother. I am the myth bitch you dream about. Mahalo nui loa.
Yes, give it up for Na'u Revilla. Thank you so much for your offerings. The next poet is Simon Shea. Simon is a Taiwanese American poet, essayist, and educator. He is the author of Master, chosen by Terrence Hayes for the Catherine A. Morton Prize. His poems and essays are published or forthcoming in Poetry, American Poetry Review, and the Yale Review, among others. They've been recognized with support from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation. Take it away, Simon.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you to Beyond Baroque. Nohu and Kay, your poems are so heartening. It's an honor to be reading with you. Angela, I have so much gratitude to you for inviting me to this reading. Your poems are just an inspiration to me, and it's been a while. I miss you, Angela. But anyway, I'm going to start my timer. This is my first Zoom reading, so bear with me. My first poem is called Kindness Comes Too Easily to Wicked Men. In every ballroom, he is the chandelier. No, he is the song that everyone only knows the chorus of. Beautiful, relentless. He dresses as a dead soldier every Halloween. In the army, he says, you are dirt under the nails of your country. My mother wants him dead. The family of a young girl wants him dead. In the pockets of his old fatigues, a torn zodiac and a rusted metal spoon. Never in my life did I believe I knew him. Once, in a fit of rage, he named every star in the sky after a dead man. Premature blessing. One night in a Taiwan hospital, a man cut my mother open and took my body out. Deliverance. Years later, she will tell me, we never remember the men who we cannot forget. He gave me a necklace of teeth. He laughs each time someone says the word God. Every day I guess his favorite color, and every day I get it wrong. Mercy, sweet throat, mercy, blackbird. He once wrote a song about me in the middle of the night. When I sing it, a black snake slithers from my mouth. The next poem I'm going to read is called Act 1. Pine Sol on the bathroom tiles, an offering to the wrong God. Sometimes I do not see him for days. When he returns, a small bird dead in the toilet means he is restless. I tiptoe, unplug the vacuum, hush the children tearing at each other's bare chests. When I am old enough, he tells me what the mind can overcome, and I believe every word. He talks about loyalty. He talks about bone growing on top of bone, how to convince my body that it's worth it. Often I grow sleepy and stare at his hair, the gel like blood caked on black fur. His people plant seeds between their teeth, speak in the cadence of rain. Though they are solemn, he reminds them of laughter. When he blesses their children, they offer him their children. And when their faith wavers in his absence, he lays his naked back perfectly flat on a bed of nails before them and tries not to move. His favorite lie. I also want to take a moment to thank Moxie, my interpreter. I think it's so amazing to have you interpreting my poems. Reverence. The first night I dream of him, he pulls his fists out of my chest. I stare at his middle knuckles until they are the stones laid on the eyes of the dead. The second night I dream of him, he almost walks right past me in his uniform. When he stops, the light is a dim copper water. He orders me to attention. He moves like a burning mannequin. The third night I dream of him, I present him with a blood orange in a crowded mall. He pretends this is not ceremony, tells me not to call him master with so many people around. I bow to him. I bow to him even as he walks away. The next poem I'm going to read is called Clearing the Hills. He spends his days spitting sunflower seeds into a red plastic cup as my mother worries a hole through her sleeves. The thumb makes us human, she tells me. I have not slept for 2 days, and in that time I have seen so much. A Japanese maple falling in an abandoned backyard during a late night thunderstorm. My mother hiding grapes in the pockets of my blue jeans. One morning, an hour before sunrise, he sends me running up a hill with a violin, drives himself to the top to watch me play. Broken strings, broken light. He compliments me, says it is like watching someone undress chords with his fingers. Like so many things, he never told me it was a punishment, and I never asked. As morning comes, I consider the origins of sunlight, how far it must have come to get here, how far it would have to go to escape. I'm trying to think of some ways that my poems are in conversation with the other poems that have been read tonight. And it's hard because there's so much complexity and nuance, obviously, so many differences. But I really did feel in Kay and Nuo's poems a feeling of wound and attending to the wound. And that's something that I think about in my own work, is kind of laying bare the wound or being honest about the wound and then tending to it, because I think we cannot tend to it until we're honest about it. This next poem is called Day One. Late at night in my new home, I wake to the sound of rain falling through a hole in the roof. Still, I keep your things close by. An Alaskan knife, a blue vial of cologne. I dab it on my neck, the insides of my wrists. A fly mistakes me for bruised fruit. I breathe deep, walk outside to the water's edge, though I no longer believe what I see. That the severed hands drifting downriver are the same hands that once ran through my wet hair. In this new life, I ask nothing of you. A tree grows out of the carcass of a deer, its branches thrusting into the night like antlers. At your funeral, 3 women stood by as they buried you, though only one cried. Nobody loves the living like the dead. Your scent rises from my skin, gathers in my mouth like a storm. I exhale my breath, a rain cloud. My whole life, you treated me like a dream you would write down when you woke. And here we are. I lie beside your body in the tall grass. The wolf tattooed on your chest saunters onto mine, makes a bed of my torso and falls asleep. Its jaws hanging open, teeth brushing against my throat. Thank you to everybody who came out tonight for poems. Thank you to Angela, especially. Thank you to Beyond Baroque. I look forward to hearing Janice and Angela's reading.
Thank you so much, Simon. All right. Thank you all in the audience for sharing the love in the chat, to all our wonderful poets who've gone up. We'll share a link to list of their books that you can find on bookshop.org. If you click on this link, you can find a brief list of books from our poets tonight. And if you do decide to purchase their book and support the author, you're also supporting Beyond Baroque Bookstore. So please feel free to support us all. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. Our next poet is Janice Lee. Janice is a Korean American writer, teacher, spiritual scholar, and shamanic healer. Incorporating shamanic and energetic healing, Lee teaches workshops on inherited trauma, healing and writing, and practices in several lineages. She currently lives in Portland, Oregon, where she is the operational creative director at Corporeal Writing and an assistant professor of creative writing at Portland State University. All right, all yours, Janice.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Beyond Baroque. Beyond Baroque has a very special place in my heart, and I'm just super honored to be part of this lineup tonight. I'm just trying to catch my breath, actually, after everyone's readings. Yeah, thank you so much, and congratulations, Angela, on your new book. So I'm gonna start by reading just a really short excerpt from this collaborative novel that just came out that I co-wrote with the poet Brenda Ajima. And we wrote some of it before the pandemic, some of it during the pandemic, and it includes a lot of different vantage points like squirrels and trees and the virus. And I just wanted to bring in some fire. So I'm going to start with that. Who remembers the flicker of the flame before the darkness settled down to keep us warm? Who remembers the bright lights above that held the distance at bay, that kept distance like keeping time on a watch? Who remembers what it was like when everything was lit and translucent and we could see each other, see through each other as clearly as we see each other now? It's a slow-moving fire, and it's the sky in its entirety. It's a pink nose aimed at the sun and the sneeze that revolves around uncertainty. It's all of the fires and an adjustment of face, an adjustment of the towel of one's hair clinging to a sweaty cheek. It's that sound he makes when he's asleep and makes your heart flutter because you know he's finally resting. It's that shrug of who even knows anymore, and it's the door rattling on its hinge. It's nothing apparent. It's everything obvious. It's so empty. It's the removal of face or rain or love or time. Who are you? Screams the sentence. There is no response. So I'm going to read a few poems from my collection, Separation Anxiety. And I'll just say, so none of the poems are titled, so I'm just going to read and then pause and read. And there's a lot of different themes in this book, but I will say that one thing for me that this book holds, that is that it's bookended by grief and the anticipation of grief. So before the writing of this book, I lost one parent and one of my dogs. And though I didn't necessarily know at the time, after the book, I would lose my other dog and my other parent. So that is something that this book holds that I didn't necessarily know at the time of writing. We couldn't get into the garden, he said. She said there was a wall. They said the wall walls, said the circumstances of the event itself. Within the wound, there is always a wall, but it didn't just appear there overnight, an attempt to track the source, a relief of walling. The plants may have protested, but no one listens to what sounds like silence. Silence is conceived, perceived, said the false picture of edges along the graceful trail. Lightened, penetrated, said. And the trees weren't heard, and the wall persists because that's the way it is, he said, she said. It's always been that way, they said. The trees said, the unsaid. Why the prayer? Why the wind between the rolling weeds? He calls it smog. His eyes don't hurt yet. Wild sunflowers along the freeway, still turning towards the sun, still turning towards the flames, while we turn our backs or have turned them already, waiting for redemption. That was never the point. Why, we ask, as if we deserve answers when we never listened hard enough, when we ran away from our own selves, expecting to find a home, not in ashes. There are bands of energy that dwindle and build up, reaching horizontal. The trickster coyote ascends as a starting point, but would a doorbell be a better idea than the knocker in the shape of a dog's head? Horizontal, reaching. How is one reminded to laugh when the winter seems endless, when despair seems endless, when it all seems endless, and ending it all seems easier than reaching up? Horizontal. Easier than laughing, easier than joy. Here in winter is the strange gift of white space. Here in winter, the coyote warns of self-sabotage. There, in between those horizontal bands of energy, there is a lone boat attempting to navigate through the fog, and all the while being watched, and all the while, the coyote can't believe it. Let's take another look. But if we reach horizontally dwindling light and lulling in the shadow of a large mossy rock, one feels the bone structure of the landscape. One is able to dream, and the dreams, like the rock, can be shared. What are rights when you are the dreamer? What are dreams when you are lost in the horizontal shadow of your own attempt to journey forward? What is an attempt when we lurch forward, a strange consecutive sequence that enacts dreaming and action and cleansing, that is, while we roam the land in that dream space of fog and sense and words, might we be prompted to put intention behind the lurching? That we will all go back down these paths more than once. And we try to explain ourselves, but there is a scurry in the step. These steps are necessary. The sky, as horizontal as it is wide, is necessary. There is the matter of water. The sky is a reflection of the ocean, not the other way around. And when the frog calls, he calls to others, guarding horizontal, replenishing horizontal, bands of energy that dissipate and rebuild a new pond, another mossy rock, another derivation of energy. And when in assembly, it is the dream that is forgotten, endless effects of mouths that open and close. I must have felt as a long line of mucking in the pond. I must have felt as disembodied at the water's edge. I must have felt your despair, your reaching. And when my body volunteers, it becomes darker than this. It becomes lighter. It becomes translucent. It becomes. Howl harder. That sinking gut feeling, that sinking below the soil feeling, your intestines disintegrating in the molten heat of the earth's core, your moans of pain that can't be heard by anyone but the crows because you've been stretched so thin. I remember when my mother told me to beware, all men are dogs, and to this day, the one I loved the most is an actual dog. Still running along the beach, waiting for the pieces of oxtail that I chew off and save for him. When the worms get up to my knees, I feel them wriggling in that in-between space where the soul resides, under the skin, under the kneecap, soft, chewy tendons. Sometimes we need more space to get away from that kind of love, to settle in again, back in the soil. It isn't so dark under it all. It isn't so damp. It isn't so unfamiliar. The grave we avoid every day is also the site of our redemption. Dying is living and living is dying, and both are sacred. And the worms crawling up my nose while my corpse rots are sacred, and your bloodied knuckles still beating against the wall are sacred, and each and every breath is sacred. It never ends. There is no finality to history, no final movement, just the eternal movement of the sun and your knees scraping across the concrete as you crawl tirelessly towards the horizon. And I'll read one last one. An invitation to empathetic seeing might begin with the tree, might begin with the phrase, I suppose. And the density of a forest might begin at the edges, blurred, unfocused. One tree falls down and we all hear it falling. The other trees around it rattle and shake, are affected by the other tree, are affected. When there is so much green, we might penetrate the picture space and find ourselves lost in the shades of green. When the person in front of us is dressed in blue, we might speak for them in a bout of empathy and find ourselves lost in the shades of blue. This is the density of color. When one has nowhere left to go, when their back is to us, we might think, just get a grip, man, and they do get a grip. Still lost in the green, one might think it all ends where it begins, and yet nothing begins again. The landscape is green and rain, and the body is obscured by the veil of moisture, and the green is obscured by eyes looking, and the edges blur again as a cow moves slowly. The periphery is unreliable. The cow is unreliable. The spectator is unreliable. The rain is unreliable. Empathy is unreliable. I remember the feeling of being alive. I feel something, yet find myself located here. It isn't so green here. Neither am I welcomed by the intimacy of the rain. Neither has it ended yet. Neither has it begun. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mona, for the interpretation.
Yes, thank you, Janice. Always great to hear from you. Thank you so much for those readings. Beautiful. Last but not least is our wonderful poet and organizer of this amazing reading, Angela Peñarredondo. Angela is a queer, non-binary Filipinx writer and author of Nature Felt But Never Apprehended, All Things Loose Thousands of Times, and the chapbook Maroon. An interdisciplinary writer, artist, and educator, their work can be found in the Academy of American Poets, Blades, Apogee Journal, Southern Humanities Review, Black Warrior Review, and elsewhere. They are recipients of fellowships from Hedgebrook, Kundiman, Macondo, Tin House, the Community of Writers, and others. They are an assistant professor of creative writing at California State University, San Bernardino. Please welcome Angela Peñarredondo.
Hello, everybody. I'm still absorbing all the work and all the words and all the energies and the frequencies in the works of the readers. The one beautiful thing about reading last is I get to hear everybody read and to get activated and charged by all the magic that's being said, that's manifesting through incantation. So thank you so much, Kay and Janice and Nou and Simon. I just feel all these feelings inside, for lack of a better word. And thank you, Moxie and Mona, for being our interpreters for this evening. And thanks again to Beyond Baroque and all the good folks there. I'm going to be reading from my book and not my screen, so you're going to see me flipping over the pages and being really old school about it. And it's because I also don't have my reading glasses. I actually need reading glasses now, so until I get them, everything is going to be pretty close to my face. So the first poem is informed and inspired by blood ritual, and a little bit more about that. What I mean specifically in this case is the art and ceremony of tattoo, and dedicated to the people and the cultures and the histories that are connected to that transformative and spiritual art. And this poem actually started during my first tattoo ritual, which took place in Hawaii. So it's titled, and I'm going to be reading excerpts from it because it's quite long. And it's titled Tattoo as Softening Ritual. A healer lifts a burning bowl of copal, touch its edges to their forehead as they tell me of when they lived in the global South. Curanderas mistook them for their local indigenous woman, chestnut skin, wide nose, dignified like aspects of their shaved head. They chant behind a smoke of gold resin. In the Philippines, ancestors burn native copal from the Agathis damara tree, now endangered. Tree gum holds a history of forest collecting. Bone, bird, insecta, fur, leaf, pod, wing venation, media, costa, radius, cross vein, cubitus, juggle, sap, and archive. Scarifications on their back, marble to gliding lizard. My breasts graze scales. Lizard is eaten by another. What was charred was once hungry. A slow needle conjures storm. In a state of acute listening, an infusion of fire, one layer at a time, to honor suffering. Alongside moist herbs, water paired with blood ritual, like the lesser wax moth who breeds life in abandoned, unoccupied spaces of what was fossilized in tree gum, This grief and trance, narratives generated inside colonies of bone require submission. Then an asphyxiation, my breath collapses out of implosion, falling. When I get up, another unexposed world. I uncover what has not been killed, like dyed linen dripping on a line, absent of a body. I hang what has survived, produced underneath wet ground matter. Inside a pit, I inscribe mythology. This next piece, I'm like looking here, page 33. Okay. So this piece was inspired by my grandfather, who was a World War II Filipino veteran, and who also passed away with Alzheimer's. But I really feel this poem was also really dedicated to the people who were involved in the entanglements of war and other militarized actions, and sometimes unknowing of the kind of things they are involved in. But also I just want to commemorate elders, warriors, family, who at times can be unforgotten in our histories. This piece is titled Transmitter Signals When in Proximity to Power Collapse. And it's also a longer piece, and I will read excerpts from it. His clicking mouth like Morse code. His slippers slap across the hardwood floor of our house, his country, that is his militarized body. The untouched place, rice, dried fish, banana sliced with a spoon. He paces in his white underwear, rib tank torn at the seams, a gold medallion with words, Deus, 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 form an obtuse triangle, unguarded between throat and breastbone. How to not conjure the stones, but heat itself. From his lips, lick salt and earth. He originates to apparition. At the tail end of the hall, examines borders of a wall mirror, expecting to find a hidden switch to a trap door. Once his reflection deterritorializes, a clearing appears before him. Through silt and its rhizomes, he runs through sacramental mounds until feet, breasts, arteries, and joints unfix and feather. He sprints into a future. Throat carries the 3,700 seed capsules he will regurgitate to mush, nursing unstretched mouths. This next poem is dedicated to remembering all my trans and all my trans healer ancestors in my lineage. And this poem is titled Albularia. They steep moringa and eucalyptus in an ochre cup and present brackish burgundy lipstick. The tea, they tell me, is for my famished body. Lipstick to remind me that death, although marked in shade, is never monochrome. Everything in their home smells of lauric oil, raffia palms. Over the stove, I burn dried leaves of the Molave. Flies war around jars of palm jelly. Canned vinegars sit atop a plastic table. My violent swats, their body rattles. Spiders raid cupboards, crystallized to statuettes. Betel nut on the tongue. A song while painting my lips to sinaguelas. Flesh of Spanish plums. Those Spanish had a thing with those biblical harlots. The mirror glosses back as I examine my stained teeth. Above this hunt bent, fit into a fin to withstand typhoons, there's a gigantic but unmonumental star. The air shifts, a pile of smoking garbage to burning Molave leaves, then back to star. And this last poem, I want to dedicate to all the readers, reading with me tonight, Janice, Simon, Nou, and Kay. And this is in celebration of what it means and the joy and abundance when one continually decolonizes oneself, when one continually engages in the act of shedding and cleansing and rebirth. And also to slaying those demons. And it's titled Mercy Ceremony. I am slaying you in my dreams. No, slaying you for reals this time. Steel pointed aim like hawk bone at your bare collar. Your eyes tell of those once privileged limbs. That mouth that consumed everything it could because it believed it could, with even knowing the immensity. What was once stripped from me is no longer an invisible assault, buried under bladed tendrils of seaweed, havoc of sea grapes. There's nothing holding me back from carving as one does when whittling wood. This butterfly blade on soft tissue to etch my name. On your skin, this name for ocean, its secret wind, this tender gouge. Jellyfish all cinematic, haunting above flaring sea anemone. Black sands of my birth, its unseasonable foam. You rope bound, covered in lava sediment. I set your weight on a raft, just made for your tied up frame. Burn guava leaves above each part stamped in volcanic ash. I hover longer over bandaged eyes, wrinkled genitals, moistened pod now, waiting to return to the undulating underbelly. Blow smoke into your one exposed ear so you can feel my life force one last time, like intentional stars colliding as I push your raft off into what's destined to consume. Thank you all. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for all the folks tuning in and Beyond Baroque. I shall turn off my screens and go home full of everybody's knowledge and frequencies and blessings. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Please give it up for all our poets. Please share your love in the chat. If I can ask all the poets to please unmute yourselves, and also if you can turn on your camera. Thank you. really appreciate you all for being with us tonight, and to all our audience. Yeah, it's just a mesmerizing reading, really. Thank you. Of course, to Moxie and Mona for interpreting this wonderful reading. Please know, everybody, that you can find this in our YouTube channel, and will be archived. Will be there for the books, and we're making history. We really are exploring this through poetry as well. But before we end the Zoom room, just want to give a little bit of space to take a breath together, and also wanted to know if anybody has any comments they'd like to share. If not, it's all good. But just wanted to thank you one last time, and I'll leave you with a final link to the poets' work that you heard from today, tonight, wherever you may be joining us from. You can find the latest works of Janice Lee, Anu Revilla, Angela Peña Redondo, Hay Wollondai Barrett, and of course Simon Shea. So thank you all. Thank you, really.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. I miss
night.
you.